and welcome to Storytime with Teacher Beth. I'm Teacher Beth. Today we'll be reading The Moon book by Gail Gibbons. So reading this is inspired by the April 1st, 2026 launch of Artemis 2, the first time sending humans back around the moon since the 70s. It's been since 1972 since we went to the moon. So this is a really exciting time. So this is The Moon book. If you have a copy, go ahead and grab it now. As the sun sets at the end of each day, the sky becomes darker and darker. On many clear nights, the moon shines brightly in the night sky. Our moon is the brightest and biggest light in our night sky. It outshines all the stars and planets, which appear as small points of light. Some planets have many moons. Earth has one. So the star burns gases that give off heat and light. The sun is a star. A planet reflects sunlight and revolves around the sun. Earth is a planet. Our moon looks big and bright because it is so close to Earth compared to the faraway stars and planets. It's about 238,900 miles away. It's a pretty big distance. The moon makes no light of its own to shine. It is bright in the night sky because it reflects the sun's light. It is about 1/4 the size of Earth. It is made up of rock and dust. There is no air or sign of life. So it says the moon is about 2,000 miles in diameter, so all the way across the moon. And then it's about 6,800 miles around, whereas the Earth is about 8,000 miles in diameter, so from end to end, and about 25,000 miles round. Most scientists and astronomers think our moon formed about 4.5 billion years ago. Some believe in something collided with Earth that tossed out a cloud of rock and debris. While orbiting around Earth, the rock and debris came together to form the moon. Astronomers study planets, their moons, and the stars. An orbit is the path of one object around another. In ancient times, people thought the moon was a powerful god or goddess. The Romans called their moon goddess Diana. In Greece, the moon goddess was Selene, who rode through the sky in a silver chariot. Some American Indian tribes believed the moon and the sun were brother and sister gods. Stories and legends were told about the shapes and shadows that show on the moon's surface. Some people said the moon showed a man's face, the man in the moon, who was who was imprisoned. He was imprisoned there for stealing. Others told of the moon demons living there. I don't know. I like to look for the bunny in the moon personally. The moon is Earth's only natural satellite. It takes about 1 month for the moon to travel around the Earth. So a satellite is an object orbiting around a larger one. And then, so that's our moon, and that's the little orbit that it takes. The moon makes one complete rotation for each complete trip around the Earth. Thus, the same side of the moon is always facing Earth. The moon appears to change shape, but it doesn't. The different shapes we see are called phases of the moon. We are seeing different amounts of light being reflected on the moon. How much light we see depends on the positions of Earth, moon, and sun. So the phases of the moon, we have a new moon. During the new moon, the moon is almost directly between the sun and Earth. The moon looks dark. We see no reflected light. A crescent moon, the moon is waxing when the surface we see is getting bigger. In a few days, a bit of sunlight side of the moon shows. It forms a crescent. First quarter moon, when the moon is a quarter of its way around Earth, it is in its first quarter phase. We see it as half lit. It is sometimes called a half moon. Gibbous moon, when the moon is waxing between the first quarter moon and a full moon, it is called a gibbous moon. A full moon, about 2 weeks have passed since the new moon. Now the entire face of the moon we see shines. Then we go back to a gibbous moon. The moon is waning when the lit surface we see is getting smaller. When the moon is waning between a full moon and the last quarter moon, it is a gibbous moon once again. Last quarter moon, when the moon is 3/4 of its way around Earth, it is in its last quarter phase. Again, we see it as half lit. It is sometimes called a half moon. Crescent moon, once again, we see the small sliver of moon shining in the sky. New moon, it takes the moon about 1 month to go through its orbit or set of phases. People used to know the time of the month by watching the moon's phases. The moon's orbit around Earth is usually tilted slightly compared to Earth's orbit around the sun. Because of this, the moon cannot exactly line up between the sun and the Earth. But when the moon's orbit is not tilted, the moon lines up exactly between the sun and the Earth. A solar eclipse happens. The moon's shadow falls on Earth. A solar eclipse can last up to 7½ minutes. So you can make your own project for a solar eclipse. Here's how to make a sun projector to see the solar eclipse. You poke a pin through the center of a piece of heavy paper that is bigger than this book, or about the size of the book. Stand with your back to the sun. Hold the projector at your shoulder so the sunlight shines through the hole, and then hold another piece of heavy paper in your other hand. This is your screen. Move both papers until a large image of the eclipse appears on the screen. So you could also even do that with just the sun. And then warning, never look directly at a solar eclipse. The sun rays can hurt your eyes. Never look directly at the sun either. The moon affects the oceans too. The moon's pull, called gravity, on the oceans strong enough to cause tides. Tides are the daily rising and falling of the ocean's water. A high tide happens every 13 hours. Low tides happen every 13 hours. This is because the moon takes about 25 hours to come back to the same place in the sky it was the night before. Tide differences vary around the world. For centuries, people have wanted to know more about our moon. In 1959, the Soviet spacecraft Luna 3 transmitted to Earth the first pictures of the far side or back of the moon. There aren't as many dark areas on that side, we see from Earth. So we've got the front side and the back side of the moon and the drawing of the Luna 3. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy made a commitment to put Americans on the moon before the end of the decade. At first, many American unmanned spacecrafts were sent. Pictures were taken. Then Surveyor 1 landed on the moon in 1966. It sent back information about the moon's surface. The first manned orbit of the moon was made by Apollo 8 astronauts in 1968. And so that's April 1st, 2026 is the first time we're sending people back around the moon. On July 20th in 1969, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin of Apollo 11 mission became the first men to walk on the moon. There were 5 more Apollo landings on the moon. The last one, Apollo 17, was in 1972. The astronauts did experiments and gathered samples. Scientists and astronomers were able to learn more about the history and nature of our moon. On a clear night, when the moon is in the sky, gaze up at it. We are still learning more about our closest neighbor, the moon. The end. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about our moon. If you enjoyed today's story, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And I'll see you next time on Storytime with Teacher Beth. Bye.